Salve YouTube, and welcome to episode number 18 or part number 18 of my Rome 2 online battle series. Today I'm playing with the Arverni and I'm facing Lorenzo, who is using Suebi. So this was going to be a very interesting battle. It was the map of Arce, and I think both of us knew that it was a very wooded map and forested map, and it was also foggy. So because it was foggy, I decided to go with an army that is going to be purely designed to kind of bushwhack the enemy and just circle and surround in sort of typical barbarian fashion. The army is composed of 4 units of spear nobles, or I think I actually have 5 units of spear nobles. This is actually one of the best defensive units in the game, guys. They've got 77 defense and 70 base morale with 65 armor, meaning that they will stay in the fight for so long, especially when they're not flanked. To the left of my sort of center core of 5 spear nobles, I've got 2 units of these Oathsworns, and this is the case on both of my right and left flank. Oathsworns don't really need introduction in Rome 2. Everybody knows how much of a deadly force they can be. But my Oathsworns are also supported on the flanks by 2 more units of infantry, and these are 2 Celtic warriors. These guys are not as heavy as the Oathsworns. Oathsworns are classed as very heavy, while these guys are classed as regular heavy. And you'll see this in a lot of my battles where I have the heavier units towards my center, and then towards the flank I'll have lighter units that are able to surround and get where I need them to very quickly. I have 2 units of heavy horse, and again these are regular medium cav, and they're really there to just prevent the enemy cavalry from being decisive. Even if I lose them, they're basically just there to prevent whatever force that the enemy cav brought to sort of kind of prevent them from being able to attack from the wings. And wow, that sentence probably didn't make any sense. Many things were going through my mind at that time. But yeah, the heavy horse just there essentially as scout cav, and you'll see in the battle that they're going to be used as kind of a shield. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. My opponent here, he has 2 units of noble riders and a spear levy on each flank. I don't know why he really brought spear levies. They're pretty useless troops. I guess they do have very high defense, 59 defense, but we'll see how he uses them. The rest of his line is pretty much similar on the left flank, and I'm going to put this in slow-mo so I can actually tell you guys what's going on. So he's got these kind of noble... Why can't I go into slow-mo? That's very weird. Anyway, so you've got 2 noble riders on each flank with 1 spear noble, and then his meat core is really this sort of swordmaster berserker interchange, I guess. He's got some sort of balance of berserkers and swordmasters, and notice that he is trying his hardest here to flank me. My opponent is trying his absolute hardest to flank me. He's trying his absolute hardest to get in touch with my line here on my right flank, and he's trying very hard to do this. But I'm going to prevent him from doing this by constantly pulling back my right flank and pushing my spears forward. These guys are going to push him back. So I'm pushing back here, trying to surround here, sort of being fought off by his right flank, and I'm just completely falling back in this area. I don't want to take an engagement when my units are like this, because now look at how my light units have ended up being just surrounded and isolated. So if I was my opponent now, I would have run my cav into these lighter troops and then tried to collapse on with my swords, but he doesn't do this. He actually is going to give me the opportunity to run back, and the reason I think is because I'm pressing him in 2 fronts and also trying to flank at once. So this was actually a very micro-intensive battle for me. I don't know how skilled my opponent was. He did have clan tags, but I'd never seen him before or heard of him. So not saying that you know, if I haven't heard of you, you're not a good player, but at least he's not one of the faces that are sort of more familiar in the tournament scene. So now I decide to actually go down into a tighter formation, and I think I do. Yep, there's the shield screen. Shield screen activates just as these berserkers are going to hit. And I'm going to shield screen on 3 of my units, and you're going to see what's going to start happening here. The rest of his troops now are still going to have to flank all the way around here. And look what I'm going to do. I'm not going to let the engagement on the flank happen just yet. So I engage with some of my spear nobles on this side. I see some gaps, and I'm sending in my Oathsworns now in the middle. And this is why I have Oathsworns sort of not on the edge of my flank, but right in the middle of my flank. It's going to allow me to send my Oathsworns around and do things like this and sort of dispatch. Look at these Berserkers. They have gotten some good amount of kills on my Spear Nobles, but they're also losing a lot of men. So I'm still falling back here. I'm going to let one of these Oathsworns get attacked by one unit of Swordmasters. They're going to exchange really nicely and evenly eventually with these guys. But the reason I did this was I wanted to entice some kind of flanking maneuver, and it happened. And now I can take two of his Swordmasters here with one unit of this Celtic Warrior and one unit of an Oathsworn. But look how fast the Celtic Warrior actually going to die. So at this flank, I'm not really too interested in winning. He's going to do some hammer and anvils and do some great success. But you can notice here that in the middle, I've used my Oathsworns from both sides to kind of clamp into these units. Look at this Spear Noble. It's going to beat the Berserker eventually, even though it took some casualties. And over here, I actually still have my Spear Noble General and my Oathsworns. So notice how the Oathsworns have played a very crucial role here in stabilizing parts of the flank that I was trying to attack, and also being defensive at my other flank. My Oathsworn now is just starting to waver, and it's given me time to do what I needed to in the rest of the battle. Now you're going to see some use for my Heavy Horse. You can see that my Heavy Horse were relatively both still in the battle. I threw one of them here at this guy. This was a mistake. I should have used them better, but notice how this Heavy Horse has frenzied, and it's fighting a Noble Riders with Celtic Warrior support and a Spear Noble nearby. So it's not looking too bad for me. And if I am able now to kind of win his flank over here, then I will be able to hopefully clean up. So these two units of Swordmasters now, they're getting slammed by Oathsworns. And look, I'm going to send more Oathsworn forward. And here I've got a really nice surround, actually. You can see that now, as time goes on in the battle and my victorious flank is consolidating, and my forces from my far flank are starting to retreat, they've collapsed on my opponent's center, which was already very weak, and I'm already going to win this other flank. So it's going to end up with me winning a center and a flank, as opposed to my opponent just winning one of these flanks. So here comes these Suebi forces. They've just won a flank. To them, it looks like they're doing really well. They're coming in, but once they crest this hill, they're going to see tons of Arverni units. Here we go. Their cav is going to try its best to kind of cycle charge in and out of combat, but these Celtic Warriors are doing very well for me. And they're fighting spear levies here, and look how this spear levy that's meant to kind of tie units down for the Noble Riders to do damage, look how they're not able to actually hang on against a Celtic Warrior unit. So this is not a very great unit choice by my opponent for the Spear Nobles. A Woden-ass spear there, and maybe sacrificing one or two Berserkers overall, would have made his flanks much more formidable. But you can see now that it's basically just going to be a cleanup. My Arverni warriors here were victorious. They're going to start cheering as this unit of German cavalry begins to retreat. And over here in the center again, units are celebrating. No, not quite yet. There are still some Suebi fighting. The last remaining Swordmasters. The Swordmaster is a great unit, but it's not going to be able to stand up to all this punishment. And notice how my Heavy Horse are still in the fight. 75 HP means that these guys can survive in grinds like this. In fact, you're encouraged to throw them in grinds like this. They help tilt the balance, and they help make your Oathsworn and your other sword and spear units tireless. They're not meant to be cycle charge. You can see my opponent there, he was trying some sort of cycle charging, I believe, earlier. But you're not really going to be doing much with cycle charging except tiring out your cavalry. That was the battle. It says it was a costly victory. It actually was a very intense battle. Me and my opponent were microing very hard until that engagement. But you saw there, I'm hoping you learned something from the battle. I'm hoping you took away how I treated my army as three parts of a whole. How I pulled some of my units back on my right flank. And I think the most crucial and important thing about this video to take away is the kind of layering that you saw in my infantry line. Now, using Barbarian builds in a fashion like this, without a lot of Noble Cav support, is something that I haven't seen a lot of up until recently in tournaments. We've got players who are starting to use spear nobles more in their builds, kind of more defensive and bulkier Arverni builds overall that allows them to stand up to shock cav and shock units very much easily. A spear core that acts as a stabilizing force, and then you've got two sort of groups of Oathsworns that allow you to not win the flank fight, but make sure that your spear nobles aren't getting surrounded. So, for example, an Oathsworn can fight better surrounded than a spear noble can, because a spear noble's effectiveness comes from their frontal capability to stop not only enemy cav charges, but also infantry charges as well, and prevent that Swordmaster and Berserkers, even though Berserkers have such high attack, such high weapon damage, you saw that in a grind, sure, my spear noble loses, what, 30-40 men? The Berserkers do pay for themselves, but they're no longer a force to be reckoned with on the battle. And finally, two contingents of medium infantry on the flanks. You saw how the medium infantry on my far right flank quickly was able to retreat and fall back from very crucial positions where maybe an Oathsworn or a spear noble would have been caught up, and my flank would have started to erode away to my opponent's cavalry attacks. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to leave me a comment and a like telling me what you thought, or maybe if you have some more suggestions and ideas about what you want to see next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.